I think branding is not a matter of choice, irrespective of the size of the business or the life of the business or the stage in which they are in. After all, what's branding? It's intangible. Branding is the perception of the customers, which emanates from the customer experience. So any person who is in business, either in a product or in a service, has to deliver a customer experience that can create or instill an image in their minds to be able to generate recall whenever they need the product or the service again, right? So branding is an essential tool for any company that has to sustain their growth, let alone grow. Even to sustain where they are, I think branding is an unavoidable or an essential tool, I can say.
Okay. So
it is intangible indeed. But when it comes from a startup perspective, I think what startups need to understand, and this is a challenge that I'm facing, I can confess, during my journey at Brand Horizon. Most startups are not able to see branding investments as a short-term sacrifice in return for a long-term value addition. And that's the biggest challenge that I'm facing as a brand consultant.
Can you elaborate that a little bit more, like with an example perhaps?
Yeah, sure. I think most companies, especially I'm focusing on the startups, they're on bootstrapping, right? So they work with very little budgets. They're not ready to spend money on branding. They look at it as a cost. But the way they need to look at it is not as a cost, but as an investment for the future. Why they are not able to do that is probably because they're not able to, at least some of them, they're not able to see beyond the short-term sacrifice that the cost will entail, and visualize what long-term benefits it can actually bring them. Which is why I think most startups are not ready for branding yet, purely due to financial constraints. And the few of the startups that are ready for branding are the ones that are funded by VCs, where they are having a budget for branding and marketing, and in fact, they would need to spend that. So those are the startups that are ready for branding, but the ones that are in stage 1 capital are not ready for branding yet. But I would like to use this platform to tell them that it's no longer a matter of choice. Because there are so many startups in the similar space vying against one another, right? So it's the ones that can actually brand themselves well are the ones that will sustain and go forward.
Wow, that's true, right? Because now a lot of you're right. I mean, let us focus on the bootstrap startups here, and
Right.
And my view on that is like it is not about the idea at all. It is about, are you visible? Are you able to brand yourself, right? So my take on that is also, Asha, that everybody starting, if you are serious about your business, you should focus on branding, isn't it, Asha?
Absolutely. It's I think it's actually a starting point. It even precedes marketing, I can say.
Right. So I have a question, I think maybe a comment. I'll just pull it up here for you to see.
Okay.
So it's from Sharath Nair. So he says, absolutely can't agree more to what he said. Startups need to understand the importance of branding. People buy brand builds trust.
Absolutely. Well said, actually. Very well said. At the end, branding is all about communicating to your target audience, who are the customers, what you stand for, what values you stand for, what's the purpose for which you are there, and then telling them how you are going to actually deliver those promises. And having communicated that, you also have to be in touch with them to convey the message that you have actually maintained the brand integrity of delivering whatever you promised. That's when the brand recall gets created. So it's very intangible. It is complex. And it's not also necessary that you have, it's also a myth that people think it's branding involves huge expenditure. It's not. Actually, branding can be customized to suit the budgets, to suit the industry they are in. For example, there are some people who go into branding and just get into all the platforms. You don't have to. We help organizations choose only the relevant platforms to brand their businesses. So we could actually structure branding, our branding offerings to suit their budget requirements, phase it out, build it step by step as the revenue streams build up, and actually make sure that the minimum branding is done at the initial level, so they sustain through a phase when they can afford higher investments going forward.
Talking about a lot of brands who are still depending on a traditional way of marketing, and they're not much on digital at all. So I was reading one of the statistics, and also this talk happened yesterday in IIM Bangalore, that about 80% of businesses are still in the pre-internet era. They're doing the same old thing. So how can like these big organizations get started on this digital transformation in their business?
When we talk of digital transformation, as a brand consultant, I would never suggest that the traditional marketing gets completely replaced by digital media or digital marketing. I think we can never overemphasize the importance of traditional marketing concepts and the personal touch that it builds with the customers, and the connect that we can actually make when we are face to face with a customer. So what we normally do is we actually evaluate particular business. In branding, what happens is every business branding has to be customized. The solutions are not the same for any two businesses. In fact, they're not the same for two businesses, even in the same industry space. So every solution is unique. So when we actually take up a branding engagement, we actually evaluate what works for them. So most of the times it's a combination of traditional marketing and digital marketing. It could be maybe 70% traditional, 30% digital for some businesses. It could be vice versa for few others. It all depends on the target audience, actually.
Exactly. So we have a comment from Sid Balika. So he says, using digital or not depends on kind of target audience. So good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sid, for bringing that up. Let's talk about target audience, because branding has to do everything with understanding the target audience. So, so how can people identify their, or maybe work around the target audience? Maybe we can make some examples from your work experience.
In digital marketing?
Either way.
Okay. See, I think a startup, when it actually is in the conceptualization stage, I'm sure would have in mind what their target audience is, right? It's because I think one of the mistakes that many startups do is to get into a venture because it's working well for somebody else, which is the wrong thing to do. So just because a business model is working for somebody else, it doesn't mean that it's going to work for us. So whenever a startup conceptualizes an idea, it has to be a space that's actually not served, ideally. Because that's when we'll be able to create a white space and sustain it. And create, as they call, I love this phrase, the innovator's dilemma. So you make it difficult for others to enter your space. So that's ideally the situation. So when people have gone through that phase, they would already have in mind the kind of audience they intend to serve in order to sustain in the business. So having decided that, how you approach the audience that for whom the product or the service is intended, is a go-to-market strategy. And the go-to-market strategy, again, is it varies from business to business, It depends on what geographic locations you would like to target. I mean, where the pain points are, and where the customers are more likely to respond to your campaigns. So there are many aspects that we would want to consider when we actually formulate the go-to-market strategy. And you have to create a value proposition for your clients, right? I mean, you don't want to be doing something that somebody else is already doing. Then you're not creating a value proposition, and you'll never be able to command a premium pricing for your product. And that's probably one of the main reasons many startups fail. So having a very clear audience segment is key to a successful startup.
Okay, brilliant. So Brand Horizons helps people identify the right target audience this way?
Yeah, I've actually had sessions with a couple of startups or intended startups, I can say, who are still in the conceptualization stage. But this is one of the main roadblocks that they are facing, because they are not able to generate a white space for their product. And obviously, I won't take up assignments where the startups do not have a very strong value proposition, because that's key for branding. I mean, branding goes beyond advertisements, your websites, logos, taglines, and the likes, right? So unless there's a very strong value proposition, branding is not going to work miracles for people. Branding sometimes gets used quite loosely, I can say. I know of companies that use branding as a word merely to promote their a logo or a website. They are no doubt integral parts of branding, but they're not branding by itself. I think branding is something much deeper. It's about how you would want customers to remember you as, what you are there for, and what's your promise to them, right? And then once you are able to do that, you build a personality that can convey those values to the customer. It may sound complex, but they're all very essential aspects to be remembered when somebody talks about branding. Branding has to precede marketing, right? Branding is more about the company values and the brand promise, and what you're going to do for the customers. What they can expect from you is what they need to know. Okay. That's when the expectations start. The brand actually gets built when those expectations actually get delivered. So it's a more it's a vast topic, we can say.
Right. So I have a question on that.
Yeah.
Now, I've heard that the brand is something the customer builds. It is not about the organization. So you want to maybe talk about that? So
it's customer. No, I think the customer. It's created in the minds of the customer. It doesn't build. I think it's created in the minds of the customer. So it all emanates from the customer experience, and he creates an image about the company. The building has to happen. The building of the brand has to happen at the organization level. In fact, it's a top-down culture.
Right. So basically, exactly. So basically, you're saying a company or an organization or a startup or a SME has the control,
right?
Has the control to make what the customer wants them to think about.
Absolutely, and that's an integral part of brand building.
Right.
So they don't just form ideas and opinions without a basis. I mean, they're very rational most of the times, customers. So they build their opinions and perceptions based on a customer experience journey. And the creating customer experience journey that sends out positive vibes, a sense of trust and confidence in the product, in the service, and in the organization. That's in the hands of the management. And it starts at the top, actually, because it's a culture that emanates top down.
Brilliant.
And then it also has to percolate across all functions in order to make sure that it's unified. Otherwise, different people could be sending out different messages to the customers, and then the brand does not get built.
Okay, brilliant. So now I'm asking you this question specifically from the point of view of startups.
Okay.
So startups there are two things that startups are doing, right? So they're building a product and they have to sell the product.
Right.
And what do you suggest? Build the product, finish the product development, and then you do branding, or let's do together? What would be your take on that?
It would be ideal if ideally the founder should involve a branding expert at the conceptualization stage. That's the ideal situation, because a branding expert can actually help them conceptualize the idea in a more holistic way. And he also gets to understand what the company stands for. He can be a sounding board to make sure that they are actually entering a white space and not copying somebody else's business model. So he can actually be a mentor, so to say, even at the conceptualization stage. But if they have missed that opportunity, I think the branding expert has to get involved at least at the go-to-market stage. Because the right message has to go across to the market initially, and that's where the brand building starts. The first message that goes out into the market matters. And
Great.
Because that creates the expectations in the minds of the people. So what you send out initially is what helps you sustain going forward.
Wow, thank you so much for that. So also, also when you talk about SMEs and big organizations, they are always launching some product or the other into the market.
Right.
Now, can they look at each of these launches as a mini startup and brand each of these launches accordingly? Can they not use it?
I think branding, of course, is necessary for every launch. But this is something that we talk about initially. You are asking about whether branding is required, branding advice is required in the initial stages.
No, I'm talking about even in the big organizations.
Right.
Maybe it's a big brand. The name of the organization can be a huge organization. Under the organization, like for example, Pinnacle of Infosys, for example.
Right.
So should they not also look at branding also for their sub products, sub launches?
See, they should. Here we are getting into a topic of corporate branding versus product branding, and that's a very vast subject. Startups probably need to focus more on corporate branding. Marketing of the launches, of course, comes again next in line, and that's important as well. But when it comes to branding, I think corporate branding is very important when you are a startup. There are many companies, many startups who make this mistake of getting into product branding even before the corporate brand is built. And that's when a lot of the messages get diluted in the market, because you are pushing too many product brands into the market when the audience do not even know anything about the corporate brand. Who is the founder and what is he there for? What are the values that he stands for? So all of these are completely diluted. So startups, my advice for startups would be to focus on corporate branding and product marketing. I think that's a great combination. But for the larger organizations who have already built a good corporate brand, product branding becomes equally important at that stage in order to make sure that individual market potential is fully tapped, individual product potential is fully tapped. Of course, they leverage on the corporate branding at that stage. That goes without saying. So that's when combination of corporate branding and product branding comes into play. But when it comes to startups, I would rather keep things simple, stay focused on corporate branding, because that's expensive enough for startups, right? You need to have a go-to-market strategy for every product launch.
So we have a comment from Sid Baliga. So I appreciate Sid for participating. Customer touchpoints play an instrumental role in building perceptions. Okay. So you want...
I can't agree more. Customer touch points. I always used to give a simple example. I started my career in finance, so I know how finance is perceived by most customers. I mean, they're perceived as watchdogs. They're not the most popular in an organization, right? But there's something that I learned early in my career is that, I'm just giving this as an example. Finance people are equal brand ambassadors for an organization as a marketing person is. And how a finance person interacts with a customer, let's say he calls you up for payment, how you respond to that query. I think a vendor calls up for payment, or a finance person calling up a customer for payment. They look like very small issues, but they go a long way in creating the brand perception with the vendor or a customer. So when we talk of touch points, I think there are multiple touch points where customer interacts with the organization's product or the service or the organization itself. So it's so important to recognize each of those touch points, which is why I say internal branding comes first in branding. You need to train up your own employees first in terms of branding. They need to know what branding is all about, what's the value of branding, and how brand message should get communicated across to the stakeholders. So internal branding helps to make sure that everybody speaks one voice. So when we talk of touch points, I think a lot of the onus is on the head of the organization to make sure that everybody in the organization understands what branding is and what's the message that that should be going out of the four walls. I think that's important. And sorry, please.
So that's, you're talking about congruency internally and as well externally. Like there should be one message.
When it's done internally, I think by default it goes out. The unified message goes out.
Right.
So first step is internal congruence.
Okay, brilliant. So great. So go on. You said you wanted to add more on that.
Yeah. Talking of touch points, I think touch points is very important also in a B2B branding. There are more touch points in a B2B branding as opposed to a B2C branding, right? Because there is an R&D department, and then there is a purchase department, and then there is a finance department, and then there is the purchase committee or the senior management who actually approves the transaction. So there are multiple touch points in B2B. So it's important that the branding actually is focused on every touch point, as Sid rightly mentioned, both within the organization and outside the organization. So it applies to both internal environment and external environment.
Brilliant. So people who are watching, wow, I'm myself learning a lot just in the past 20-30 minutes. Brilliant. So great value addition. I love it. The kind of people who are watching this show is also people who are contemplating starting up. These people are employees, and they have worked for an organization for like so many years, and they're waiting for that right moment. So what could be the steps that they might want to take to start up in the right way, perhaps?
I think, as I mentioned earlier, the first thing is they need to have their value proposition very clear. I think that's the first step when at the conceptualization stage. The second thing is about creating a shared vision amongst the team. I think that's very important, because one of the startups that I have been associated with, the biggest challenges that they face is everybody in the organization is speaking a different language when investors actually approach them to exchange views before they decide to invest in the organization or not. So if there is no shared vision that's articulated within the organization, then it's easy for the startup idea to collapse early in this stage. And the other thing that they need to keep in mind is, I mean, this is a personal suggestion. I'm sure it's debatable, I would rather not have too many co-founders in the early stages of a startup. Because it could actually create a lot of conflicts. I mean, everybody may be right in their own way, but it creates conflicts of ideas and conflict of strategies.
Too many
somewhere
cooks.
Along the line, it's
too many cooks spoil.
Yeah, right. So somewhere along the line, it's easy to collapse without meaning any offense to any one of the co-founders. So I think it's better to keep things simple at the early stages. I would always say 1 or 2. I mean, 2 is always a good number. 1 probably maybe 2 less, because you don't have somebody as a sounding board to bounce your ideas. So 2 is actually a good number.
And plus a mentor.
Of course, I was coming to that, but I didn't want to pitch for a mentor. But I think it goes without saying that a mentor can be a great substitute for a co-founder.
So let's go to the question. So how can a mentor help?
A mentor is, what shall I say? A mentor is like a coach to a sports, right? Especially if you can find someone who has been in the hot seat, who has gone through all the challenges with a great deal of tenacity. I think he'll be a great pillar of strength for the founder or the founders and help them tide through all the waves that come along the way. He will be able to tell them, don't worry, there is a sunrise after every sunset, and we'll go through this and we'll come out successful. So a mentor can essentially do that. I think that's the first big way a mentor can contribute. The other thing is, of course, he can, as they say, you win employees and they will win the customers for you. That's the old adage. So a mentor can actually help build a very robust team within the organization, while the founders are busy playing their games, for which they have actually entered the business. Because no founder or co-founder can focus on every area that, especially in a startup, every functional area needs 100% focus. Right. And you can't expect 2 people to be focusing on every aspect. So a mentor can actually help bring about a holistic perspective to all the metrics in the organization and bring about a very balanced view. The other way a mentor can help is, most of the times, I think mentors are those who have had a diverse experience in various functional areas. And I think that is essential to qualify as a mentor. And they are the ones who can actually balance out the investments or the objectives in a very holistic way. For example, some startups I know have failed because either they have scaled too fast or they have not invested adequately. So a mentor can actually look at these things from a very different perspective and make sure that things are balanced out in a very optimum way, and it's on the right track to succeed. Whether or not they choose to have a mentor, I think this applies. The most important thing is to believe that they can do whatever they have set out to do, and not lose the confidence the moment they head into one roadblock. Because I don't think there's any entrepreneur who is successful today who will come and say that he has had a great journey without any roadblocks. I'm sure that's never going to happen. I mean, I think it's as certain as anything else in this world to have roadblocks along an entrepreneurial journey. So I think it's important to continue to believe in that we can do what we have set out for, and we need to have the grit to stay on and persevere. Because what happens is most people give up too easily and too early. And the other reason people give up is they choose entrepreneurship as an easy option to a 9-to-5 white-collar job. And I think that's a very bad decision. You have to be in entrepreneurship because you have a passion for it, and not because you are choosing something that you want to choose something that's easier in life. because entrepreneurship is never going to be easier in life compared to a job, because as you rightly mentioned in the early session, in organization there are a lot of systems that drive us, there's a whole team to support us. So even if you are 70% good in your job, you still survive. But that doesn't work in entrepreneurship. So I think it's more like a 24/7 job, although you may not be doing it all physically. I think there are times when we wake up middle of the night thinking about how we are going to cope with a problem.
Right.
So if you are mentally prepared for that, I think there's nothing that will stop us from getting there.
We're so proud to have Asha as one of our mentors on our platform called Fenme Mentors. So mentors. So she's just from such a such an experienced person, Asha. When she's talking about mentor, it's essential. Okay. So Asha, any last message you have for startups and entrepreneurs? Any message? Maybe one message, if that could be one message for them.
I would say when you choose a mentor, choose someone who has had his or her share of failures and yet come out successful. Because one, that gives you the reliability that they are the right pillars for you. And two, they would also have this, what shall I say, the wholehearted approach to make sure that you succeed, the mentee succeeds. So you are guaranteed that there will be an environment for the mentee to outgrow the mentor.
Brilliant. So you're talking about compassion. The mentor who has already gone through the experience can be compassionate.
No. The one who has gone through the experience has the grit to face the roadblocks of the mentee. And the one who has had his share of successes is happy with what he or she has achieved and is now looking forward to help other businesses succeed. So it'll be a very wholehearted approach, and the mentor will make sure that an environment is created for the mentee to actually outgrow the mentor selflessly.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. So how can people get in touch with you, Asha? I'm going to put the link about your website also in the description of the video of this. So you want to talk about how can they reach with you? Maybe you want to leave a number or an email ID that you have.
Sure. I'm available on LinkedIn, Facebook, Brand Horizon business page, and some of my videos are also on YouTube. Those are the 3 platforms that I'm quite active on. But for easy access, I would leave my telephone number, which is also my WhatsApp number, so they could just WhatsApp me and I'll be happy to get in touch with them. And the number is 99005 84095. I repeat, 99005 84095. And I can leave my email ID. It's asha.brandhorizon@gmail.com.
Okay,
Feel free to get in touch. I'll be happy to connect.
Yeah, so I'm going to add these details as well in the description of the video. So that was it. So thank you so much for joining us. It was an honor to host you, Asha, today. And so I'm going to see you soon, obviously. So until next time, thank you so much for joining us on Mentor Mondays. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Kashyap. Thanks for inviting me, and I have thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you.
So guys, so that was Asha Sampath. So we're going to bring amazing mentors every Monday. So if you're watching this offline as well, please leave comments because we need your support. We're doing it for you guys, for to get value out of these discussions. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Asha directly. And so until next time, guys, have fun and take care.